Chapter 11, 70th Birthday. Caspian decided to bully Thomas openly. That was how Thomas treated him in the past. He wanted him to have a taste of his own medicine. He urged, "Hurry up and do it. I don't think I have the courage to drink the water you bring me if you don't swear on it." Those words infuriated Thomas. He had no way of backing down. Even so, he couldn't blow a fuse before Caspian. Things were different now. Caspian was now the board chairman, and he needed this job. He had to keep his temper in check no matter how peeved he was. "I swear that I won't curse you behind your back. If I do, I'm a son of a bitch," he swore. Dejected, he turned and left after swearing. Willow entered Caspian's office when she was done with her work. "Today is my grandmother's 70th birthday. Why don't you come home with me?" she asked him expectantly. "Why didn't you tell me earlier? I'm not in the least prepared." "It doesn't matter. You're my husband. My grandmother will like whatever you gift her." "Then perhaps we should get our marriage certificates first," Caspian suggested. She blushed when she heard that. After obtaining the certificates, they went to the Stewart residence. The mansion was grand and magnificent. It was well decorated today. It was Marilyn Stewart's 70th birthday banquet tonight. She was the head of the Stewart family. Her children and grandchildren brought her expensive gifts. Alicia Stewart, Willow's younger cousin, said, "Grandma, I heard you are a devout believer. This emerald ornament is made from fine quality emerald. I met Father Paolo at the church. I pleaded for a long time before he agreed to bless it for me. Someone offered me $3 million for it a few days ago. I declined the offer because I wanted to give it to you as a present." Her fiancé, Richard Hudson, said, "Grandma, I heard you've taken a liking to Green Mountain coffee recently. I specifically brought back one of its oldest coffee trees from Mount Quill. Everyone who loves Green Mountain coffee will flock to the mountain every year. I went through a lot of trouble to get it." Then, Alicia's father, Donald Stewart, said, "Mom, here's a rock that's shaped like a four-leaf clover. It's most certainly not artificially sculpted. It's so natural that it's like God carved it himself. I could only acquire it because you give me your blessings, Mom. Today, I'll gift it to you. I wish you a long and blessed life." Marilyn scanned the lavish gifts they gave her. She guffawed. "Wonderful. You're all very kind. Come, sit." Everyone looked radiant as they sat at the dinner table. It was merry and joyful. "Come, Alicia. Here's a toast to you. Mr. Richard, here's a toast to you too. Thanks to you, Alicia sealed the deal and brought more joy to Madame Stewart's birthday. The Stewart family will earn at least $20 million in profits from this deal. Come, everyone. A toast to Mr. Richard." Today, Alicia, the second daughter of the Stewart family, signed a collaboration agreement with Southlake Corporation on behalf of her family. She did it with the help of her fiancé, Richard. Coincidentally, it was Marilyn's birthday banquet today. That was double the happiness. A captivating woman walked in just as they were having a good time. Beside her was a handsome man with soulful eyes. However, he wore ordinary clothes. "Grandma," Willow called out. "This is Caspian Lynch, my husband. He brought you this fruit hamper. We wish you." Everyone's attention was on Caspian, your husband, Willow Stewart, who agreed to let you marry him. "This is outrageous," Donald snapped, pointing his finger at her. "Willow, what's going on? Why haven't you told us about your marriage? Why have I never heard of him?" Her father, Carl Stewart, demanded furiously. Alicia also chimed in. "Willow, we know you've started a small company and are financially independent. But marriage is an important life event. You never informed us about your marriage and did it behind our backs. Is that how you show your respect to Grandma?" "Caspian Lynch, have I gotten your name right?" Holding back her anger, Marilyn asked with faux politeness. "I suppose you're someone outstanding to have earned Willow's favor. What's your occupation, Mr. Lynch?" "Well, I'm Willow's employee. My job is to assist her," Caspian said seriously. Willow had her charms. She was many times prettier than Alicia. So, Marilyn had always thought of her as a tool. She was a tool Marilyn could use to ally with another elite family through marriage. But Willow had been rejecting her offers. Therefore, Willow and her family were unpopular among the stewards. Today, she suddenly brought a man back and announced him as her husband. At first, Marilyn didn't know Caspian's background, so she tried to gather more information. But now, Caspian said he was an employee from Willow's lowly company. Marilyn almost exploded with anger. Alicia couldn't help but smirk when she heard he was only Willow's employee. "Willow steward, have you gone crazy? How could you marry your employee? Look at his disgusting appearance. How dare he bring a fruit hamper as a gift? What makes you think you can enter our house just like that?" Alicia's younger brother, Henry Stewart, said angrily, "You're the eldest daughter of the Stewart family. It's bad enough that you refuse to find a wealthy partner to help your family. And now, you have an underdog as your husband. What on earth were you thinking?" Everyone else followed suit. To them, Willow had everything it took to marry someone from one of Southlake's elite families. The Stewart family would benefit from it if she did so. However, she married a loser without them knowing. So, the Stewarts were displeased. How disappointing. "Willow, you're unworthy of being a Stewart. I told you so. We should cast her and her family out." Everyone looked scornful of her. Caspian was about to speak when Willow tugged him to a corner of the table. "Don't say anything. We'll leave after dinner." He nodded and remained silent. No one respected him and didn't care where he sat. They forgot all about him soon and continued the feast. Although Marilyn felt unhappy, it was her birthday today. P.L.S. Alicia had just secured a profitable agreement. So, she temporarily put aside Willow's issue. "It's not easy to be able to collaborate with Southlake Corporation," she said. "Looks like we're one step closer to becoming one of the elite families in Southlake." "That's right. That's how capable my son-in-law is. He got that straightened out in no time. Unlike someone else, who's just a good-for-nothing." Donald glanced at Caspian, who was enjoying his food in a corner. Donald was Marilyn's second son, and also Alicia and Henry's father. He wasn't on good terms with Carl. So, of course, he would take the chance to jeer at them. Of course, Carl and Kate Massey, Willow's mother, looked dissatisfied when they heard that. Carl and Kate didn't even know that they had a son-in-law. Still, they didn't question Willow publicly. "Dad, how can Richard be compared to a loser?" Alicia was the Stewart family's hero today. She looked down on Willow and Caspian. Marilyn agreed. "That's true. Mr. Richard is from a prestigious family. He's an outstanding young man. Not everyone can be compared to him. Some people are just good for nothing. He doesn't know his place and doesn't have any manners. All he sees is the food laid before him. Who knows why he has chosen to enter our gates? If we let him be, he may just leech off us until we're bankrupt." Marilyn praised Richard and ridiculed Caspian at the same time. Richard smiled faintly. "You're flattering me, Grandma. Some people haven't seen the world and have never eaten such delicious food. Let him have more. Think of him as a pet dog. The Stewart family can afford to rear one." Richard disliked Caspian the moment Willow let him in. He was such a rumpled piece of trash, yet he was now the husband of Southlake's prettiest woman. They were just like the Beauty and the Beast. To Richard, Willow surpassed Alicia in terms of grace and appearance. When he first approached Alicia, he intended to ask Willow's hand for marriage. However, Willow had rejected his proposal several times. That was why he had no choice but to marry Alicia. "You're right, dear. Having another dog here is fine since I already have a Pekingese." Alicia fanned the flames. Everyone noticed that Caspian had been quiet and considered him a douchebag. They started belittling him one after another. Seeing how he had become the victim of her family's criticism, Willow felt flustered. She looked like she was about to burst any time. Just as she was about to rebuke those who criticized him, he slowly put down his utensils. "All the fuss over an agreement with Southlake Corporation. Get a hold of yourselves," he said disdainfully. Silence followed. They never expected this gloomy loser to fight back. He was very rude as well. "What did you say? How dare a loser like you speak to us in that way?" Marilyn remarked furiously. She frowned and glared at him. "He's just an employee. I bet he never heard of Southlake Corporation. That's why he can say something so ridiculous." Hey, loser. Listen here. Southlake Corporation has a market value worth hundreds of billions. It's the greatest enterprise in Southlake. Any family on good terms with it will have good prospects. Every elite family in Southlake bows before Southlake Corporation because it leads Southlake's business industry. There's no use explaining that to him. Look at the clothes he's wearing. He obviously hasn't seen much of the world. I don't know how he can wrap Willow around his fingers. It's a waste of time telling him all this. Willow shuddered as her relatives degraded them. Holding back her tears, she said, "Grandma, it's your 70th birthday today. My husband and I are here with sincere intentions. We wish you well. But look at them." Marilyn said coldly, "Are you here to celebrate my birthday or to wreck my big day? I asked you to marry a rich man from Southlake, but you refused. I thought you were aiming for better candidates. And those rich men weren't good enough for you. Who would have expected you to lead a loser home? Are you trying to give me a heart attack?" Chapter 12, we'll have our wedding too. Upon hearing Marilyn's harsh words, tears streaked down Willow's cheeks. There. Grandma has spoken. Don't you feel ashamed of yourself? That's right. This loser is just plain shameless. His butt is glued to the chair. Not everyone can come into the Stewart residence as they please. Who knew how they hooked up with each other? Oh, it can't be. Willow, did that loser assault you? Willow, hurry up and get lost. Take that loser with you. At that moment, Willow and Caspian became the target of criticism. The Stewarts hurled nasty words at them. Carl and Kate sat awkwardly in a corner. They were seething and didn't plan on backing up their daughter. Before coming, Willow brought Caspian and was hopeful they would obtain her family's blessings. But she never expected her family to condemn her. In fact, some even suspected she had to marry Caspian because he assaulted her. She couldn't hold back her tears in the face of their baseless criticism and suspicion. Caspian didn't have the mood to stay there any longer. He held her hand and turned to leave. However, something unexpected happened. Just as Caspian stood and turned around, his elbow bumped into the emerald ornament behind him. It was the emerald ornament Alicia gifted Marilyn. The ornament wobbled. Luckily, it didn't fall. Alicia fumed when she saw that. "Hey, loser. Watch where you're going. You almost smashed the present I gave Grandma. Are you trying to cause trouble here?" As she yelled, she picked up the plate before her and flung it at him. Caspian sensed something coming at him. He immediately turned and threw out his fist. Crash. The plate smashed into pieces when it met his fist. However, the food residue on it splattered onto his shirt. He didn't mean to bump into that ornament. He also didn't expect Alicia to hurl a plate at him just because of that. Was he not a human to her? These people had been spitting foul words at him the moment he stepped into the house. He endured everything for Willow's sake, but he had reached his limit. This time, he was truly angered. Suddenly, everyone felt a foreboding sense of danger. Caspian's eyes were as cold as frost as they focused on Alicia. The Stewarts were still insulting them when that happened. But now, an abrupt silence fell. Caspian was glaring at them with merciless eyes. No one there had seen such menacing eyes. They couldn't help but shudder and shrunk back. Who would have guessed the quiet loser would fly into a rage on the spot? They could even sense his wish to beat them up and quell his anger with their blood. "Caspian, what's wrong? Are you okay?" Willow hurriedly stopped him when she noticed his threatening look. When he saw her tug his hand, he withdrew his intimidating aura. Right now, he was hiding out in the city. Although he was Lord Caspian, he couldn't kill anyone publicly. No one on Earth had dared to attack him. If they did, his subordinates would act before he did. They would chop the enemy into pieces as a warning to others. That was because insulting Lord Caspian was akin to insulting Diatoran's pride. Willow wiped her tears as she roared at Alicia. "Alicia, that's too much. Caspian is your cousin-in-law, and he's older than you. How can you throw a plate at him?" She couldn't hold herself back any longer after what Alicia did. Alicia had recovered from the shock she had. She wasn't afraid of Caspian now that his eyes were back to normal. It must have been an illusion. She was the second daughter of the Stewart family. How could an ordinary white-collar worker have the guts to glare at her? Besides, any guy with some strength would be able to smash a plate with his fist. Alicia said arrogantly, "Willow, he almost smashed the present I gave Grandma. When someone like him commits a mistake in our house, he should be prepared to receive his punishment. Then only will he remember what he has done wrong." Alicia had been living in Willow's shadow since she was young. Their grandfather, who was the head of the family then, doted on Willow. Therefore, Alicia had always borne resentment toward her cousin. However, their grandfather passed away 2 years ago, and that was when Willow fell from grace. After much effort, Alicia finally reached where she was now among the Stewarts. Willow retorted, "Caspian is my husband. He didn't do that on purpose. Besides, your gift is sitting on that table, intact. You should be mindful of who you answer to. Even if he makes a mistake, it's not your right to punish him." Caspian looked at her in surprise. He never thought his wife would firmly stand before him when someone bullied him. Though she was pretty frank, still, he was slightly moved. I agree I should be mindful of who I answer to. But that depends on your status in this family. It depends on whether or not you deserve to be shown respect. Alicia had just scored a collaboration with Southlake Corporation. Because of that, she stuck her nose up in the air and looked down on Willow. "You." Willow was so angry she didn't know what to say. Marilyn put down her utensils. She calmly came to Alicia's rescue. "All right, Alicia didn't do that deliberately. She had only thrown the plate lightly. Why do you have to stir up a fuss? You two are cousins. Don't fight over an outsider. Sit down and enjoy the feast." Noticing how lenient Marilyn was toward Alicia, Willow sobbed again. She felt wronged. She didn't do it deliberately. "Fine, I'll leave." She took Caspian's hand and turned to leave. "Willow, don't go so fast. I have something to inform you about," Alicia said from behind as they were about to leave. "What is it? Make it quick," Willow snapped. Alicia took the chance to subtly mock Willow. "Richard and I will have our wedding on the 30th of this month. As a steward, I'll have a proper wedding ceremony and reception. I can't just lead some weird guy back home and claim he is my husband, or else others will talk behind my back." Willow looked like she had eaten something disgusting. Alicia was definitely mocking her. Everything happened too fast. Willow hadn't thought about their wedding ceremony at all. As women, we must wear a wedding gown at least once in our lives. We can't just get a marriage certificate and consider ourselves married. You guys must be too broke to have a proper wedding ceremony. How about this? Be my bridesmaid on my wedding day. You can still experience the joy of having a wedding even though you can't afford it. Remember to come early on that day. You're going to be my bridesmaid." Alicia looked mockingly at her. It wasn't that Willow couldn't afford a wedding. Everything happened in a blink of an eye. After getting their marriage certificates, she couldn't wait to bring him home to meet her family. Who would have thought they would face so much criticism? At that moment, she felt immensely annoyed at Alicia's words. She didn't give a damn about being someone else's bridesmaid. Just then, Caspian, who had been quiet, spoke. "Your sister and Lair married. She's not suitable to be your bridesmaid. Coincidentally, we'll have our wedding ceremony on that day too. It'll be grand enough to shake Southlake." The Stewarts gaped at that. "Then," he continued, "our wedding will be 1,000 times grander than yours. By then, my wife, Willow, will be the most envied bride in Southlake. So, you'd better find another bridesmaid." He made an important decision the moment Willow spoke up for him. He was going to reassume his role as Lord Caspian. During this past year, he had been hiding in this city. He was here to recover from his wounds. Then, he met Melanie. He thought Melanie was his true love. He planned to reveal his identity to her on his birthday. Then, he would ensure she lived the good life. Alas, she wasn't the one for him. Now, a woman willingly stood before him and backed him up. He wanted her to lead a glorious life. At present, the situation at the borders was unpredictable. He had fully recovered, and it was the time for the world to see his might again. He was born to dominate. Chapter 13: Buying over Southlake Corporation. Moments later, the Stewarts finally regained their senses. Then, they burst out laughing. Has he lost his mind? Holding his wedding on the same day as Mr. Richard. He's going to humiliate himself. A grand wedding, huh? He's not only a loser but also a show-off. I can't get why Willow likes him. Look, his clothes have faded due to frequent washing. Yet he boasts about holding a wedding 1,000 times grander than Alicia's. Willow, I really don't understand what you see in him. You know what? I think you should divorce him. The sooner, the better. You have so many admirers. Pick anyone, and they'll surpass this loser easily. Willow's expression darkened as she listened to her family's jeers. She wanted nothing but to shut Caspian up. She was furious after listening to his bragging. Caspian, why would you brag about having a grand wedding? Can you please be more practical? I never knew you were such a show-off. You're enjoying the moment, no doubt. But have you thought about how humiliated I'll feel when the time comes? But then, he gazed straight into her eyes. His gaze was solemn and passionate. Honey, I'm not bragging. I'll walk the talk. When the time comes, I'll ensure you become South Lake City's happiest bride. She was immediately stunned. Caspian sounded sincere. It didn't seem like he was boasting. Willow could feel his determination when she met his gaze. She chose to believe everything he said. Okay, I believe you. She didn't even know why. Maybe it was because of his firm gaze. Or it could also be because of his heartfelt confession. All right then. Let's do it this way. Let's have our wedding at the same time that day. Then we'll know whose marriage is more glamorous, Alicia suggested. All right. Willow will surely have a memorable wedding on the 30th, said Caspian. Deal. You'd better not bail on Willow at the last minute. Alicia imagined them feeling embarrassed on her wedding day. She couldn't help but scoff. Caspian Lynch, right. What if you fail to keep your promise? Marilyn abruptly asked. Weren't you guys egging us on to divorce? If I fail to keep my promise, I'll break up with Willow and leave South Lake City altogether, he said. Sure. Everyone here is a witness. No one forced you to say that. When the time comes, I hope you'll keep your promise. Marilyn had always considered the daughters of the Stewart family as alliance tools. They were born to help the Stewart family ally with other elite families through marriage. After Willow and Caspian divorced, she would take Willow's marriage into her own hands. She would then let her marry a young man from a reputable elite family in South Lake City. Don't worry. I will, Caspian promised. You heard him, Willow. Are you sure you're leaving the Stewart residence with such a boastful loser? Marilyn asked. Yes, I am. Willow was enraged, too. She didn't even hesitate. All right, that's your choice. As the head of the Stewart family, I'll retract all of Willow's shares in Stewart Group. I'll consider returning them to you after you've cleared your mind and divorced this loser, Marilyn said coldly. Silence followed. Who could have expected Marilyn to banish Willow from Stewart Group? Willow had her own company, but without Stewart Group's support, her company would probably fail to attract any business. She was stunned. She started her own company, but she had also been helping out at Stewart Group all these years. But now, Marilyn decided to cast her out just because she wasn't pleased with her husband. I hope you won't regret it. After this, you'd better not beg Willow and me for help, said Caspian calmly. The Stewart family, begging you for help. You're delusional. Marilyn scoffed. Marilyn was worried. Willow could always use her identity to withdraw money from Stewart Group. Thus, Willow might use that money for the wedding. That was why she froze Willow's shares. That was also why she chose to drive Willow out of Stewart Group. Firstly, it was to protect Stewart Group's property. Secondly, it could also cut off a great amount of Willow's income. You're kidding us, Caspian. You haven't taken your pills today, I assume. Why would we beg a loser like you for help? Retorted Henry. Nonsense. You're just a loser. There's no way we'd beg you. You're worth nothing to us. Now, get lost. Alicia mocked him. They were delighted to see Willow being driven out of Stewart Group. Thus, Stewart Group would be theirs in the future. They had been conspiring about how to drive her out of the company and the family. But now, they didn't have to do anything. Willow was already eliminated. Willow, let's go. Caspian didn't want to waste his time on them. He tugged Willow, who was gaping, and left. Scram. I hate people who keep showing off but are really incapable. Marilyn's harsh words came from behind. They had already stepped out of the gates when Willow came back to her senses. Caspian, you can always tell me if you want to break up. Why must you stir up trouble during the banquet and humiliate me? Willow asked furiously. Caspian was stunned. I don't intend to break up. Well, why did you make that bet with my grandmother then? And before my family too, she asked. Because I'm sure I'll win. Now there's only the two of us. Stop pretending. I'm now your wife since we've already gotten our marriage certificates. I have some savings left for you to organize the wedding. I don't want you to feel embarrassed. Don't worry, honey. I'll keep my word. Caspian's eyes were again full of determination. Willow remembered the $12 million he invested in her company. Could he really be the lucky winner of the $15 million? If he was, he should still have $3 million. That should be enough for a wedding. At that thought, she asked, Let's go home. Where do you live? Let's go to your house, honey. I'm renting, and the house is too small. Caspian scratched his head and smiled. You... She shook her head resignedly. Then, she sighed. Hop on. He got into the car with a smile. Then, he texted Sylvia. There are two things to be done. Firstly, Willow and I will have a wedding on the 30th of this month. It must leave the entire South Lake City in awe. Secondly, buy over South Lake Corporation on my behalf by tonight. I'll take over the duties as the CEO tomorrow. Chapter 14. The new CEO. The next morning, a shocking piece of news spread across South Lake City. An anonymous billionaire had bought over South Lake Corporation, the largest enterprise in the city, with $30 million. The purchase had taken place overnight. The company now had a new CEO. The former CEO declared his resignation, and his successor would be a competent young man. The news spread like wildfire. Even the older citizens, who were out early for breakfast, were talking about it. Every elite family in the city held urgent meetings. They exchanged information and were wondering who could have bought over South Lake Corporation with such a huge amount of money. Waking up in Willow's villa, Caspian received a message from Sylvia. She said he could now take over as the CEO of South Lake Corporation. He wasn't in a rush to do so. After getting out of bed, he considerately prepared a delicious breakfast. Then, he waited for Willow to wake up and have breakfast together. Willow was exhausted last night. She woke up later than she usually did. I'll go to a wedding planner in a while. Come with me, she said as she ate her breakfast. I'll handle our wedding arrangements. I told you, you'll be the happiest bride in the city, he said. Are you dreaming? There are only a few days left, and you're still fooling around, she remarked coquettishly. Honey, you can go to the office if you want to, or you can rest at home if you like. Don't worry about the wedding. Also, I'm not going to work today. I have something else to attend to. I'll take my leave. After he finished speaking, he pecked her on her forehead and left. Then, he went to South Lake Corporation on a bicycle. As he arrived, a speeding Audi braked before him. The people who came out of it were none other than Alicia and Richard. Upon seeing him at the entrance, Alicia asked curiously, Caspian, what are you doing here? He didn't feel like speaking to this ill-mannered woman, so he ignored her. Oh, I know. Are you planning to apply for a job here? Aren't you working at my cousin's company? Why? Has my cousin fired you? She rambled on. The answer is obvious. After the bet yesterday, he must be looking for another job. He has to earn more to afford his sensational wedding, Richard mocked sarcastically. However, I think you're a little too late for that. Alicia added, I really don't know from where you get your confidence. You're dead set on humiliating yourself. Why else would you brag about having a wedding many times grander than ours? You should know that we've booked an entire floor at Lunar Hotel for our wedding reception. You're only an employee riding a bicycle. How will you ever match our standards? Richard's voice oozed with sarcasm. You haven't been to Luna. Have you? You have no idea how majestic it is. Let me tell you this. Lunar Hotel is the most luxurious save for Jade Dragon Grand Hotel, which is the grandest hotel in South Lake City. I'll let you win if your wedding is half as grand as ours." Alicia smirked. "We've already spread the news about our deal yesterday night. The first headline of the day is about Southlake Corporation's new CEO. Meanwhile, our rivalry made the second headline. Now, everyone in Southlake City knows about it. I'll wait and see how you handle the aftermath when you fail to organize a proper wedding." Caspian looked at them as they spoke in turns. He felt irritated by their speeches. He asked emotionlessly, "Why are you here?" He had left his wedding arrangements to Sylvia and was confident in her. He was now Southlake Corporation's CEO, so he wanted to know why this tiresome couple was there. "We're here to discuss a project, of course. Southlake Corporation has a new CEO starting today. We want to take this opportunity to propose a project on behalf of Stewart Group," said Alicia. She continued, "You should know that Richard here has an uncle working as a project director in this company. His uncle determines who should or should not take charge of a project." "Oh, I see." In his mind, Caspian immediately decided on something. Alicia continued, "You're nothing but a loser leeching off your wife. Yet, you're here to apply for a job. I'm afraid you aren't even qualified to be a janitor. This is Southlake Corporation we're talking about. Not everyone can work here." He ignored them. But he wasn't in a rush to enter the building. He wanted to see what other mockery they would throw his way. Then, he would pay them back for what they had said. "If you need a job for more income, you can always drop on your knees and beg me for it. For Alicia's sake, I'll get my uncle to assign you a post as a janitor," said Richard. He had to be mindful of how he behaved yesterday as it was Marilyn's birthday banquet. He dared not be too arrogant. But now, he showed his true colors. "That's right. You'll get the job if his uncle agrees. Hurry up and beg us." Alicia chimed in. "If you beg me hard enough, I can get my uncle to hire you as a ID guard. It's not a bad job. You only need to monitor the surveillance images as you sip your coffee." Richard wanted to take the chance to crush Caspian. He could then record him and post it on social media. "I have a feeling your uncle will lose his job today," said Caspian. Then, he strode into the building, leaving Richard and Alicia at the entrance. Moments later, Richard regained his senses. "What did that loser say?" "I think he says that your uncle will lose his job today," said Alicia. "Shameless bastard. How dare he say such things about my uncle? Hey, loser, stay where you are. Let me teach you a lesson." He flew into a rage and had the urge to beat Caspian up. Alicia immediately pulled him back. "Richard, we're in Southlake Corporation. We can't act rashly. People like us shouldn't bother about losers like him. Let's pay him back when we have the chance." Richard thought about it and realized she was right. Then, he relaxed his clenched fists. After that, they entered the building together. They were meeting Wilson Hudson, Richard's uncle, who was working there as a project director. The CEO's office was on the 66th floor. Caspian followed the instructions on Sylvia's message and took the elevator to that floor. When the elevator door opened, he saw a pretty woman standing right outside. She was elegant and had alluring curves. This beauty was Southlake Corporation's vice president, Miranda Barton. Sylvia told her last night that the new CEO's identity should be kept a secret. The employees shouldn't know who he was. Therefore, she relocated the employees on the 66th floor to another floor. Now, she was the only one there to welcome their new CEO. She had been waiting for quite some time, too. When Caspian emerged from the elevator, she couldn't help but gape. It was totally unexpected to her. Southlake Corporation's new CEO was the Stewart family's infamous son-in-law. His name had spread across the internet like wildfire overnight. She had been wondering since last night, guessing who their new, mysterious CEO could be. But she never once thought it would be him. Willow was arguably the most beautiful woman in Southlake City. Richard and Alicia had hyped up the incident at Stewart residence last night. After that, almost everyone had learned that she had married a good-for-nothing. Besides, someone posted their photos on the internet last night. So, Miranda immediately recognized Caspian as Willow's good-for-nothing husband. From her expression, Caspian knew she recognized him. After all, he saw the headlines that morning, too. He would probably be stuck with the title the Stewart family's useless son-in-law for a long time. Mr. Lynch, are you the new CEO of Southlake Corporation? Miranda asked tentatively. Miranda had achieved her ambitions at a young age. She had become the vice president of Southlake Corporation in her 20s. Besides her exceptional capabilities, she was also a well-mannered woman. She was knowledgeable. She had seen many famous but humble big shots. So, she wouldn't look down on Caspian just because of that baseless headline. Besides, why would he come to the 66th floor if he wasn't their new CEO? Caspian nodded and hummed in acknowledgement. Although Miranda was gorgeous, he didn't take a second glance. He only had eyes for Willow, who was undeniably charming. Good day, Mr. Lynch. Please follow me. After confirming his identity, Miranda was all the more respectful toward him. She showed him the way to the CEO's office. Then, she briefly introduced herself and summarized the daily operations of the company. Caspian said, "I'm here today because I need your help with some tasks." Miranda smiled. "Please let me know what you need me for. I'll be sure to keep it in mind." Chapter 15. You're fired. Firstly, Southlake Corporation will operate as usual. The current organizational structure shall remain. Keep my identity a secret. Don't let anyone else know who I am. I won't come here often, so you have full authority to deal with company-related matters. All right, Mr. Lynch. I will not disappoint you. Miranda didn't expect Caspian to give her such authority on his first day. She was delighted. He continued, "Secondly, our company will immediately cease all collaborations with the Stewart family." Miranda was stunned when she heard that. She asked curiously, "The Stewart family? Isn't that your wife's family, Mr. Lynch?" "Yes." "Sure, I'm on it." Miranda was puzzled. Why would he cut off all collaborations with them? However, her experience had taught her to follow instructions and never ask what she shouldn't. He asked, "Thirdly, does our project director have the surname Hudson?" He planned to take action against Richard's uncle, but he was concerned he might mistake someone else for him. So, he had to ask. "Yes, Mr. Lynch. Our project director is Wilson Hudson. He's from the renowned Hudson family in Southlake City," Miranda explained. "Dismiss him from the company. At the same time, cancel all collaborations with the Hudson family too. If he asks, tell him the following reasons. Firstly, he has signed an agreement with the Stewart family. Secondly, his nephew, Richard, has been too arrogant and offended someone he shouldn't have." "All right, I'll work on it." Miranda remembered his instructions. "You may settle these 3 tasks first. Then, come back here. I have other tasks for you," said Caspian. "Sure, Mr. Lynch. I'll take my leave now." Miranda nodded respectfully before leaving the office. Meanwhile, Richard and Alicia were in the project director's office at Southlake Corporation. "Uncle Wilson, now that the corporation has a new CEO, do you think the Stewart family can acquire another project?" asked Richard. "As for the kickback, they say the amount will be the same as before." "Didn't we just sign an agreement yesterday? Why are you asking for another today?" asked Wilson. Alicia answered, "Uncle Wilson, the Stewart family's business is flourishing. We can definitely achieve more than that. So, since the new CEO has just assumed his duties, he may be too busy to pay attention to the project agreements. It's the best time for my family to secure more projects." Sitting on his executive chair, Wilson shook his head. Greed knows no bounds. Alicia pulled a bank card from her purse and handed it to Wilson. "Uncle Wilson, we'll be a family soon. We hope to have your assistance. The benefits are mutual." "All right, then. I'll consider it and contact you within the next few days." Wilson kept the bank card in the drawer. "Thank you, Uncle Wilson." Alicia grinned. "Oh, right. I met the Stewart family's useless son-in-law just now. He wanted to apply for a job here. You mustn't let him work here. Not even as a janitor," said Richard. "Are you talking about Willow's husband, Caspian?" Wilson saw the news last night, too. The news reported that Southlake City's most beautiful woman, Willow Stewart, had just registered for a marriage with her employee. "Yes, that's him," said Alicia. Why do you resent him so much? What did he do to you? Wilson asked curiously. He spewed nonsense at the entrance moments ago. He said you'll be fired, Richard told him. How rude. How dare an underdog like him curse me behind my back? I'll contact the HR department and get him out of here. Wilson was furious when he heard what Richard said. Just then, Miranda entered his office with several security guards. When he saw her, he immediately stepped forward and greeted her with a smile. Miss Barton, what brings you here? You can always call me to your office if there's anything you need me for. As Southlake Corporation's vice president, Miranda had never come to Wilson's office. Usually, she would get her secretary to notify him, and he would go to her office. Miranda went straight to the point. Wilson Hudson, I'm here to notify you that you're fired, she said coldly. Wilson was dumbstruck. He almost lost his balance and quickly held onto his desk. Richard and Alicia stared open-mouthed. Wilson stared at Miranda, and his voice quivered. Ms. Barton, why am I being fired? There has to be a reason. The new CEO made the decision. Please leave the corporation now. The new CEO. Who is the new CEO? He has just assumed his title today. Why would he fire me? Wilson asked nervously. I'll relay the CEO's message. There are 2 reasons for your dismissal. Firstly, it's because you signed a contract with the Stewart family. Secondly, your relative, Richard Hudson, has offended someone he shouldn't have. Wilson shuddered. How would signing an agreement with the Stewart family be a reason to fire him? On the other hand, Richard was shocked when he heard what Miranda said. He tried to recall who he had wronged and how he had caused his uncle's dismissal. Alicia was stunned. Could it be that the management had realized that she had been offering Wilson bribes? Our new CEO said Southlake Corporation will call off all collaborations with the Hudson and Stewart families starting today. Mr. Wilson Hudson, please pack your belongings and leave the company immediately, Miranda ordered coolly. Suddenly, Wilson's vision turned black, and his knees gave way. With a thump, he fell to the floor. He wasn't working at Southlake Corporation just for the salary. After all, he had shares with Hudson Group. He also ran a business on his own. What he cared about most was his authority as Southlake Corporation's project director. This post allowed him to provide continuous projects to the Hudson family. Throughout the years, the Hudson family had risen to fame in Southlake City because of Wilson's influence. He would give the Hudson family any project the Southlake Corporation had. As Marilyn said last night, any elite family that built a relationship with Southlake Corporation would prosper. Numerous elite families bowed before Southlake Corporation because it led the business industry in Southlake City. Now, the corporation had fired Wilson and ended all collaborations with the Hudson family. Wilson couldn't quite compose himself, especially when he knew the reasons for his dismissal. It was because of an agreement he signed with the Stewart family yesterday. It was also because his nephew wronged someone he shouldn't have. Alicia was in a daze too. She had just received the agreement, yet it was now invalid. Richard thought, that loser, Caspian, was right. Uncle Wilson was fired. Why did it happen so abruptly? Who on earth was the big shot he offended? Miranda saw they were still in a trance. So, she left the security guards her instructions before leaving. Watch him. When he's done packing, escort him out of the company. Miranda returned to Caspian's office on the 66th floor. Mr. Lynch, I've handled all 3 tasks, she reported. All right. Now, help me with one more thing, replied Caspian. Please go ahead. I'll listen attentively, she answered courteously. The role of the project director is vacant now. Spread the news that Southlake Corporation is hiring for the role. When my wife, Willow, applies for the job, hire her. Everyone else doesn't matter. Miranda couldn't understand why he did that. Finally, she couldn't help but ask, Mr. Lynch, you can always hire her straightforwardly if you want her to take up the role. Why do you have to use such an indirect approach? Chapter 16 Jinx. I've told you before, Caspian said. No one should know about my identity, including my wife. Just do as I say. Sure, said Miranda. While she holds the post, she'll get to decide the partners of all our projects. However, You shall inform her she doesn't have permission to collaborate with the Stewart family. If she insists, she must apply to the CEO's office. Caspian told the Stewarts last night they couldn't beg him and Willow for help. They scoffed at his words then, and asked him to get lost. But now, he incidentally fired Wilson, the current project director. It happened in good time. Willow could assume the role instead. It would also benefit the company she established. By then, Willow would have the authority to choose the partners for Southlake Corporation's projects. He would love to see how those snobs from the Stewart family begged her for a chance. Sure, I'll let her know when the time comes, said Miranda. After she starts working, you shall assist her and make sure she knows her way about the corporation's operation as soon as possible. I'm not interested in business. My seat will be hers in the future. Caspian, or Lord Caspian, was the leader of his troops at the borders. He was concerned with the security of Diatorin. His job was to protect his country. He wasn't in the least interested in the business industry. He bought over Southlake Corporation as a gift for Willow. She would have to give her all to scout for resources and networks for her small company. He didn't want her to be so tired. His wife strived to succeed in her career, so he would help her reach the top. Besides, according to Sylvia's intel, he had a gut feeling there would be a war again. A storm was brewing at the borders of Diatorin. Their enemies could make a comeback soon. Therefore, he arranged for Willow to take over the largest corporation in Southlake City, Southlake Corporation, as quickly as possible. As for the Hudson family, the Stewart family, and the employees in her company who looked down on him, Caspian didn't want to waste his time dealing with them. If Diatorin was safe, he might mess around with them to pass the time. But now, war was incoming. Protecting the country was his priority. Don't worry, Mr. Lynch. I'll do my best to assist your wife. After Miranda knew Willow was their future CEO, she would spare no effort to help her. Caspian stood and went to the window. On the 66th floor, he could overlook the entire Southlake City. High-rise buildings were everywhere in the city, but none was as magnificent as Southlake Corporation. Caspian stood upright like a sturdy pine tree. His eyes sparkled as he muttered, "Willow, from now on, those who bring you unhappiness will come before you and beg for your mercy. I promise you will be the happiest woman on earth." Miranda stood behind him and watched as he looked down on the world around him. She felt dazed. How lovely it would be if she had a husband like him. Southlake City's media condemned him for being a good-for-nothing husband, but he was actually the new CEO of Southlake Corporation. Willow would be so surprised if she knew. Miranda thought, one should never judge a book by its cover. Suddenly, Caspian turned around and saw Miranda gazing at him fondly. He asked, "Why are you staring at me?" Miranda quickly gathered herself. Her cheeks burned. Your feelings for Miss Stewart moved me. You're very nice to your wife." Caspian nodded. "Give me your contact number. Contact me if anything happens." Meanwhile, Wilson came to his senses in the project director's office and stood up. Glowering, he slapped Richard. He pointed at his nose and roared, "You worthless loser. Who on earth did you offend? You're the reason I lost my job." "I lost my job at Southlake Corporation, for goodness sake. How would the Hudson family have reached this height without my position as the project director?" "Richard. Oh, Richard. I'd kill you with my bare hands. Uncle Wilson, I didn't offend anyone." Holding his cheek, Richard felt wronged. The Hudson family was strict. The children wouldn't dare to fight back or resist when their elders scolded them. They wouldn't even budge when their elders hit them. "What was that you said? Were you listening when Ennis Barton explained why I was fired? It was because you offended someone whom you shouldn't have offended. How dare you deny it?" Wilson rebuked. "Uncle Wilson, Richard has been with me every day. I can vouch for him. He really hasn't offended anyone. He's innocent. Could there perhaps be some misunderstanding?" Alicia spoke up for Richard. It never crossed their minds that Caspian was the one they offended. Although it had only happened recently, they didn't think a worthless man like him would have this much authority. There was no way he could cast Wilson out of Southlake Corporation. So, they said nothing about their conflict with Caspian. "You're in no place to say anything. I'm holding your family accountable for making me lose my job. Didn't you hear what Ms. Barton said? I wouldn't have been fired if you hadn't begged me to give you a project. You're a bringer of bad luck. You're going to be the end of the Hudson family." Wilson's anger escalated as he spoke. He dishonored Alicia, the Hudson family's future daughter-in-law. Alicia dared not say anything else. Richard said, "Uncle Wilson, the Hudson family has plenty of resources. We have many properties, too. You can always work at Hudson Group. So what if South Lake Corporation dismisses you? Someday in the future, Hudson Group will surpass it, for sure. You brat. You know nothing. We can spend an eternity working our asses off, but Hudson Group will never be as prosperous as South Lake Corporation. Do you have any idea how much our family has benefited from my post? Great. Just great. Because of you two, I'm losing my job. South Lake Corporation is even stopping all collaborations with our family. What a great loss. Can you both bear the responsibility?" Wilson was enraged and embarrassed. He kept venting his anger on them, disregarding the dignity of both families. Richard looked upset, too. He understood their situation. Wilson had not only lost his job as a project director, but also the future of the Hudson family. "Uncle Wilson, Caspian's foul mouth is to be blamed. He said that you would lose your job right before us. Who could have known he was a jinx?" Richard tried to redirect Wilson's anger to Caspian. "Get lost. Both of you. Get out of my face. Don't appear before me ever again." Wilson couldn't believe that he had lost his job because of something that loser said. Seeing how furious he was, Richard and Alicia lowered their heads as they fled. "Mr. Wilson, please hurry up and pack your belongings. It's time for you to leave." Wilson looked up and heaved a long sigh. It seemed he could only return to his family. Richard and Alicia left the building feeling dejected. Coincidentally, they met Caspian. Richard's eyes widened with anger. He snapped, "You loser. It's all because of you that my uncle got fired. Caspian, you jinx. If you're that good at cursing people, you should put on a pointy hat and cast spells wherever you go. Why would you apply for a job here? You bring bad luck." Alicia sneered. Caspian wasn't planning on responding. He continued walking as though he didn't see them. Wilson had just given Richard a mouthful and slapped him hard. Richard was now almost bursting with anger. He flew into a rage out of embarrassment when Caspian ignored him. "Hey, loser, I'm talking to you. Are you deaf?" Richard hollered. In a few strides, he darted toward Caspian. He wanted to beat him up. Caspian looked back abruptly, and a murderous aura filled the air. His eyes were as cold as glaciers as he glared at Richard. In those eyes, Richard sensed the same danger he felt last night. Suddenly, his legs wobbled. Trembling, he slid and fell. Alicia started trembling when she saw those eyes again. His eyes were like an eagle's as it focused on its prey. She stood where she was, looking ashen. Chapter 17. You have no right to intervene. Do you want to lay a hand on me? Come on. Then, what's with the hesitation? Caspian spoke with a chilling tone. At that moment, there was no way Richard dared to say anything else. Faced with Caspian's imposing demeanor, his defenses had all but collapsed. Richard did not even dare to breathe loudly. "Did you think that I was an easy person to mess with? If this were in the past, you would have been dead because of your actions. But now, I can't be bothered to deal with your ignorance." Caspian rented a bicycle and left after he spoke, leaving behind a dazed Richard and Alicia in shock. "Are you okay, Richard?" Alicia asked in concern. She hurriedly helped the visibly shaken Richard up. I'm fine." Richard still felt intimidated. That bastard looked like he wanted to devour someone. Why did Caspian have such an expression? Caspian felt like a complete demon to Alicia just now. Really, it wasn't that bad. I only fell because I lost my balance earlier. Otherwise, I would have knocked his teeth out. Richard forced himself to stand firmly. He casually brushed off the situation because he didn't want to be humiliated in front of Alicia. Alicia naturally understood his intentions. That good-for-nothing must have been rejected for the interview here. That's why he came to us to vent his frustrations. There's no need for us to bother with losers like him. Let's see what he can compete with us for on the day of the wedding on the 30th, she said. That's settled then. Willow must divorce him on that day, Richard said coldly. Caspian had just returned home. He was about to step into the living room when he heard Kate's relentless yelling. Willow, listen to your mother and cut ties with that loser. Divorce him immediately and marry Mr. Nicholas on the 30th. Only by marrying into the Archer family can you prevent Alicia from overshadowing you. To think that loser even dared to boast that he would hold a grander wedding than Richard and Alicia. Now, everyone has already heard the news that your wedding will be held on the 30th of the month. How can we compete with them when they've already booked Lunar Hotel? The only hotel that can be comparable to Lunar Hotel at South Lake City is Jade Dragon Grand Hotel. However, it's impossible for that loser to hold the wedding there. Even your grandma has never set foot in that hotel despite her age, Kate exclaimed. If you're willing to marry Mr. Nicholas, he can book the entire floor Lunar Hotel and give you a grand wedding. Our family will no longer need to put up with anyone's attitude in the future. That way, you and Alicia's wedding will also be on par. Just think about it. The two of you reserving 2 floors at the Lunar Hotel to hold your weddings would bring unprecedented glory to the Stewart family. Kate continued to advise Willow. As long as you're willing to accept Mr. Nicholas, our family's position will be stable within the Stewart family. There won't be a need for us to please anyone else in the future. The reason why they're so arrogant now is because Alicia married a rich husband. But look at you, marrying such a good-for-nothing. Caspian had roughly grasped the situation after hearing Kate's words. His mother-in-law wanted Willow to leave him and marry Nicholas from the Archer family. His heart sank. There were only a few days before the 30th of the month. By then, the grand wedding he had asked Sylvia to arrange would surely outshine Alicia's. I don't agree with this, Mom. I don't want to leave Caspian. Willow's agitated voice echoed out. How can you be so stubborn after all the advice I've given you? What kind of a life can you have with such a useless person? Are you willing to live such a lowly life forever? Kate asked frustratedly. It's because I love him, Willow stated firmly. Caspian's LPs curled up slightly upon hearing her words. He hadn't expected to become such an important person to Willow in such a short time. It seemed that his efforts to help her were worthwhile. How could you fall in love with a loser like him? Are you out of your mind? Kate was so upset that she was unable to speak coherently. The next moment, a man's voice rang out. Willow, that loser is just an insignificant employee in your company. What kind of relationship could the two of you even have? Don't tell me you really believe that he can give you a grand wedding. Although Caspian was unfamiliar with the voice, he had already figured out who it belonged to. It was Nicholas Archer, the man who had been pursuing Willow aggressively. But what surprised Caspian was that Kate had brought Nicholas directly to their house. Willow, you know my feelings for you. Your past doesn't matter to me. Will you marry me? Nicholas spoke up again. However, Kate still had some reservations. Although Willow has married that loser, they have yet to sleep together. She's still a virgin, she interjected. Mom, why are you saying all this? Willow was both annoyed and embarrassed. I'm just telling the truth. What's the problem with that? Kate asked. Let's stop here. Caspian promised to give me a grand wedding on the 30th. I believe him, Willow said. Have you been bewitched by him? To think you would believe in his nonsense. How can a good-for-nothing without a proper job like him afford to have a grand wedding? He's deceiving you, Kate exclaimed. Even if Caspian doesn't have the financial means, I still won't leave him. I don't care about all that. All I ask is for him to treat me wholeheartedly. Please stop talking about this. Willow's patience had worn thin. Willow's words showed Caspian her stance and persistence in upholding their marriage. He couldn't help but be moved. He pushed open the door and entered without hesitation. You're back, Caspian. Willow breathed out a sigh of relief when she saw him. Mom, to think you had time today for a cup of tea. Caspian greeted Kate. He pretended to be oblivious to the entire matter. Sitting on the sofa was a good-looking young man. This was none other than Nicholas Archer, who had been pursuing Willow relentlessly. Caspian treated Nicholas as if he were invisible. Kate felt indifferent when she saw Caspian. Ignoring his presence, she continued to speak to Willow. "Listen to me, Willow. Mr. Nicholas is our only savior now. Stop being so stubborn. My decision is final, Mom. Stop bringing it up." Willow's face was red from the awkwardness. "Willow, I've received reliable information. Southlake Corporation has terminated its collaboration with the Stewart and Hudson families. Only the Archer family has not been affected in any way. This only proves to show how strong their background is. Everyone will look up to us if you marry Mr. Nicholas," Kate implored. Unable to wait a second longer, Nicholas took out an exquisite square box. Ignoring Caspian completely, he got down on one knee and held the open box in front of Willow. "Willow, will you marry me?" A valuable diamond ring lay sparkling inside the box. Willow was taken aback. This scene was completely unexpected. After all, Caspian was still there. Caspian was also surprised. Nicholas was indeed shameless. How dare he try to snatch his wife in front of his very eyes? "What are you waiting for? Willow, accept his proposal. Look at how big the diamond is. It looks very valuable," Kate said hurriedly as her eyes widened in awe. "1. This is nothing, Mrs. Kate. It's only worth around $40,000 to $50,000. Once Willow marries into our family, she can have anything that she wants," Nicholas replied smugly. Kate was all smiles. $40,000 to $50,000 is still a small amount to you. The Archer family is truly well off. Mr. Nicholas comes from a wealthy background. He's also received a good education abroad. He's 100 times better than that spineless husband of yours in every aspect. There's no way Caspian could afford a ring like this. So, hurry up and accept the proposal," Kate urged again. "No. I won't agree no matter what. My heart belongs to Caspian," Willow refused. Kate was completely dumbfounded. She had spent so much effort to convince Willow, but she still did not agree. "Regardless of what you think, Willow, you should wear the ring first," Nicholas said, as he tried to grab her delicate hand. All of a sudden, a strong hand clamped down firmly on Nicholas's wrist. Arg! It hurts. It felt like a knife had stabbed Nicholas's hand. His hand felt like it was about to be torn apart. He loosened his grip on the diamond ring, and it fell to the floor. Caspian had intervened to stop Nicholas. Caspian was all but indifferent to these matters after experiencing so many hardships. However, he could not tolerate Nicholas's arrogance. Wouldn't he be ridiculed as the ruler of Diatoran if he allowed his wife to be bullied? "I've already ordered an engagement ring for Willow. You have no right to give her a ring." Caspian's tone was resolute, leaving no room for questions. A diamond ring worth a few tens of thousands was nothing to Caspian. Only the most dazzling diamond ring in the world would match his wife. Chapter 18. The person they offended was me. Kate and Willow were both shocked when Caspian suddenly took action. "What are you doing? Let go." Nicholas's face contorted in pain. "Are you deaf? Willow already refused you. I don't mind breaking your legs if you continue to pester my wife," Caspian said calmly. Even Willow had never seen Caspian display such resolve before. He even dared to confront Nicholas. "You worthless bastard. How dare you raise a hand against Mr. Nicholas? Are you tired of living? Hurry up and release him." Taken aback, Kate yelled furiously. "No matter what, I'm still Willow's husband. Why are you siding with him instead?" Caspian asked irritatedly. "Mr. Nicholas is the son-in-law that I favor. As for you, you're not worthy to be with Willow. Apologize to Mr. Nicholas quickly, or you'll regret it," Kate replied. Caspian's heart sank. Resolving a bastard like Nicholas using brute force didn't seem meaningful. He let go of Nicholas's hand. However, both Willow and Kate thought that Caspian had been intimidated by Nicholas's status. "If you have any self-awareness left, you should leave Willow immediately. You can't provide her with an upper-class life," Kate insisted. "We're only a few days away from the 30th. Why are you in such a hurry? If I can't give Willow an exceptionally grand wedding on that day, I'll leave her then," Caspian replied. "Why do you need to do something so unnecessary? In the end, you're just a broke man filled with lies," Kate retorted. I'll fulfill everything that I've said on the day of the wedding, Caspian said indifferently. 1. Kate simply couldn't be bothered with Caspian. Turning toward Nicholas instead, she asked, Mr. Nicholas, did this good-for-nothing hurt you? Mrs. Stewart, I didn't expect this guy to be so rough. My arm almost broke. Although there were countless grievances in Nicholas's heart, he did not dare say anything further. After all, he did not feel that he was a match for Caspian in terms of strength. He's all brawn and no brain. Don't take it to heart, Kate consoled him. Willow is destined to have an unhappy life if she marries a worthless guy like him. Mrs. Stewart, you're well aware of my family background. As long as Willow agrees to marry me, the Stewart family can easily collaborate with the Southlake Corporation when the time comes, Nicholas said. Don't worry, Mr. Nicholas. I'll continue to persuade Willow. You should keep the diamond ring for now, Kate replied. She picked up the ring from the ground and placed it in Nicholas's palm. Paying no attention to Caspian, she continued to persuade Willow patiently. Willow, your grandma wouldn't have taken away your shares in the Stewart Group if it wasn't for this good-for-nothing. Your future will be bright as long as you marry Mr. Nicholas. Everyone in the Stewart family will look up to you then. Resigned, Caspian left the hall. Walking toward his house, he dialed Miranda's phone. Miranda did not dare to ignore Caspian's call. Picking it up immediately, she asked, What can I do for you, Mr. Lynch? From now on, cut off all of our collaborations with the Archer family, Caspian ordered. Surprised, Miranda couldn't help but ask, Mr. Lynch, why the sudden? No particular reason. It's just that Nicholas Archer has made a mistake. He's offended the wrong person, he replied indifferently. Miranda was taken aback. Why were all these wealthy scions so idle? Caspian had consecutively terminated their cooperation with 3 major families. There would be significant losses for the projects Southlake Corporation was involved in. Mr. Lynch, we have numerous ongoing projects with the Archer family. The sudden termination of our cooperation will lead to tremendous losses. This may not be an appropriate decision, Miranda explained. Naturally, she had the company's profits in mind. No matter what, she was still the vice president of Southlake Corporation. She had to consider the company's well-being. You talk too much. Just do as I say. Don't worry about the losses, Caspian stated indisputably. As the ruler of Diatoran, money had all but lost meaning to him. It was nothing but cold numbers. By kicking out the Archer family, Willow would have room to maneuver the company when she applied for the job later on. Understood, Mr. Lynch. I'll handle it right away, Miranda said. She did not dare to say anything more. Also, tell the Archer family that the losses they incur are all because Nicholas offended the wrong person, Caspian instructed. Understood, she replied. Just as Nicholas was about to pester Willow again in the living room, he received a phone call. It was from the head of the Archer family, his grandfather Lawrence Archer. What's wrong, Grandpa? Did something happen? Nicholas asked. You rascal, what have you done? Which important figure did you offend? Lawrence asked furiously. Nicholas was confused. It was the first time he had seen his grandfather so furious. Perplexed, he replied, I haven't offended anyone. What's going on? The vice president of Southlake Corporation called me personally. She told me that the company was halting all collaborations with our family because you offended someone you shouldn't have, Lawrence said sternly. Is that so? Grandpa, I didn't offend anyone. I'm busy proposing to Willow from the Stewart family right now, Nicholas explained urgently. Both Kate and Willow were shocked upon hearing Lawrence's voice. Even the Archer family had been kicked out of Southlake Corporation's projects. After the Stewart and Hudson families had their cooperation terminated, it was now the Archer family's turn. Not only were the notices given suddenly, but even the reason for the sudden termination was the same. Had all these scions offended the same person, return home immediately. Southlake Corporation's decision has caused our family to lose over 60 million. Lawrence was overcome with anger. All right, I'll go back right away. Nicholas was taken aback. 60 million was a staggering figure. I'm sorry. I have something to attend to right now. I'll be leaving first. Nicholas said as he hung up the call. Go ahead, Mr. Nicholas. Don't forget to propose to Willow personally on the 30th. By then, Willow would have definitely kicked that good-for-nothing to the curb, Kate said as she followed Nicholas out. We'll talk about it then, Nicholas replied with a wave of his hand. With no further reason to stay behind, Kate left Willow's house along with Nicholas. Willow couldn't help but feel relieved when she saw both of them leave. She knocked on the bedroom door. Hearing the sound, Caspian opened the door. You already know what happened just now. I had no idea about the matter. Thinking back to the situation just now, Willow still felt the need to explain to him. It's okay. You don't need to explain it. I understand. Caspian knew that Willow was placed in a difficult situation. You bragged that you would give me the grandest wedding ever. It's already become a hot topic throughout the city. I hope you keep your word. Don't disappoint me on that day, Willow said. Trust me, Willow. I'll definitely make you the happiest bride in South Lake City on the day of our wedding, Caspian said determinedly. Who would have thought that the newly appointed CEO of South Lake Corporation would consecutively terminate cooperation with several major families when they just stepped in today? Moreover, the reason for the termination was all because they offended someone they shouldn't have. Who exactly did they offend? How does this person have such a great influence? Compared to the wedding, Willow was more curious about the company. It's me, Caspian said calmly. Chapter 19, An Unexpected Job Application. You. Willow's mouth fell open in surprise. That's right. Haven't you noticed? Nicholas offended me because he proposed to you in front of me, Caspian said. Even if he offended you, what does that have to do with South Lake Corporation? Willow asked. That's because the new CEO of South Lake Corporation is me, Caspian stated seriously. How is that even possible? You, the CEO of South Lake Corporation, can you be a little more believable when you brag? That's complete nonsense. South Lake Corporation is the largest company in the entire South Lake City. Willow did not believe a single word that Caspian was saying. Caspian felt resigned. He was telling the truth, but Willow didn't believe him at all. However, he had anticipated this reaction. After all, there was no way Willow would believe him after he had revealed the truth so suddenly. Only when he gradually revealed his true abilities would she truly be convinced. We can talk about this next time. I've just learned some important news today, Caspian said. What is it? Willow asked. Caspian didn't have many connections. How could he receive any important news? There's a vacant position for the project director at South Lake Corporation. They're looking for new recruits. The position offers flexible working hours so you don't need to be in the office every day. I think it's a suitable job for you. You can give it a try, Caspian suggested. Oh, I'm aware of the news as well. However, a big company like that offering such a high position would have many experts competing for it. I can only imagine how difficult the recruitment would be. I have no confidence in my abilities, Willow replied. Have more confidence in yourself. You're an excellent graduate from a top university, with years of management experience. How can you know the outcome when you haven't even tried? He encouraged. While that may be it, South Lake Corporation would definitely want to hire the best managers. I'm afraid I don't have the skills for it. Willow still lacked confidence. We have a slight advantage. I know the new CEO of the company. I've already given them a heads up. Seeing that Willow was getting discouraged, he thought of a new method to encourage her to apply. What? You're joking again, right? The new CEO is so mysterious. No one in South Lake City knows his true identity. You're definitely making this up, she said in astonishment. The CEO was my deskmate back in school. We have a good relationship with each other, Caspian explained. If that's the case, how did he suddenly become so wealthy? Did he buy the entire company? Willow was shocked beyond belief. He had a wealthy father. He inherited a vast fortune graduated. However, he doesn't like to flaunt his wealth. That's why he's been keeping his identity hidden, Caspian replied. Are you really telling the truth? Willow found it hard to believe that Caspian had such a classmate. You'll know whether it's true or a lie once you try. It's not like you'll lose anything even if you don't succeed, right? Caspian said. All right then. I'll give it a try. But if you were lying, I'll make sure you won't hear the end of it when I get back. Willow didn't think there was a need for him to deceive her. After all, such an opportunity was hard to come by. The recruitment staff will be off duty soon if you wait for too long. Now's the perfect time to go, he suggested. Okay, let me get ready, she replied. Meanwhile, everyone was disheartened at the Stewart family's meeting. They thought things would turn around for the family after signing the contract with Southlake Corporation. However, the contract had been terminated in just one day. This sudden change was like a roller coaster ride. They couldn't accept it. Why did this happen? We just received the project, but it's already been terminated. What's the new CEO of Southlake Corporation up to? Why did he terminate our collaboration as soon as he took office? I'm not sure. There was news that Wilson, the project director, was dismissed because he signed a project with us. The reason Wilson was dismissed was because his nephew Richard offended a big figure. This has nothing to do with our family. Even the Archer family's cooperation was terminated because Mr. Nicholas offended someone who could have such a big influence. This person is definitely closely related to the new CEO of the company. Each of them expressed their opinions one by one. There's no use sighing now that we're facing this situation. The position of the project director at Southlake Corporation is currently vacant. If someone from our family can take up this position, we won't have to worry about securing contracts in the future. Marilyn spoke up. Exactly. Grandma is absolutely right. Our family has many talents. We can all try out for the position at the company, Alicia suggested. You're right. I'll apply for the position right away, Henry replied. At the same time, both the Hudson and the Archer families were holding a family meeting. Richard's offense against an important figure had led to the direct dismissal of his uncle, Wilson Hudson. They had also lost Southlake Corporation as a strong business partner. He received a severe scolding from the elders during the meeting. Richard felt aggrieved. He had only clashed with that good-for-nothing, Caspian, recently. He hadn't offended anyone else other than Caspian. Nicholas's situation was almost identical to Richard's. He had also received a severe scolding during the family meeting after offending a mysterious figure. This had caused the entire family to lose millions of dollars. In the end, both families had come up with a solution. They had decided to send their key family members to apply for the position of project director at Southlake Corporation. Willow prepared her resume and headed to Southlake Corporation, along with Caspian, in the afternoon. The company had been completely surrounded at the moment. All of the people had come to apply for the position of project director. Alicia and Henry were also among them. Just seeing the massive crowd made Willow feel somewhat anxious. It was a difficult challenge with so many candidates vying for a single position. Could your deskmate have simply been good at empty talk? Willow glanced worriedly at Caspian. We have a good relationship. He told me that the position will definitely be yours, as long as you perform normally, Caspian said confidently. Seeing his calm demeanor and resolute tone, Willow chose to believe him. The vice president of Southlake Corp., Miranda Barton, would be the one to personally conduct the interview. Caspian had already informed Miranda that no one but Willow should be chosen. She couldn't arrange for her subordinates to conduct the interview, so she had to do it herself. Miranda didn't want to waste any time after seeing the huge crowd of people. She immediately gestured to the next person when she realized that the candidate wasn't Willow. Even Alicia and Henry had been ushered out the moment they entered. Although it appeared to be a grand recruitment, it was essentially just a formality. After all, the recruitment process had been designed specifically for Willow. Why are you here too? Willow, don't waste your time. They don't even take us seriously. We were kicked out as soon as we entered. You shouldn't waste your time either. Why don't you go and take a hike? Henry said. Stop with the baseless claims. I just took a look at today's weather. Your cousin will be the project director, Caspian said whimsically. Oh, stop that. How can you tell anything from the weather? Alicia replied irritatedly. Richard's uncle had already been dismissed today because of Caspian's jinx. Don't come crying and begging for your cousin to give you projects when she becomes the project director, Caspian said. Us, begging you for help. Dream on. Alicia replied. Good. Looks like you have an unyielding character. Let's see how it goes, Caspian said. After a while, it was finally Willow's turn for the interview. She entered with a sense of trepidation. Willow was a well-known beauty in South Lake City. Miranda easily recognized her with one glance. After confirming her information, Miranda spoke up. Congratulations, Miss Stewart. Our company needs talent like you. You've been hired. If everything is in order, all you need to do is sign, and the position of the project director will be yours. What? But I haven't even said anything yet. Willow wondered if she had misheard. She hadn't even introduced herself, yet they already wanted to hire her. This outcome felt somewhat surreal. It was as if she had won a massive jackpot. Could it be that the CEO of South Lake Corporation really knew Caspian? Chapter 20. There's something wrong with them. That's right. All you need to do is sign this. Seeing the surprised look on Willow's face, Miranda wondered how shocked Willow would be if she knew her husband's real identity. Great. I'll sign it right away, Willow responded excitedly. Miranda spoke up after Willow had signed. We extend a warm welcome to you, Ms. Stewart. From now on, you're a part of South Lake Corporation. If there are no exceptional circumstances, you can begin your work tomorrow. All right. Thank you, Ms. Barton. Willow simply couldn't contain her excitement. It looked like Caspian didn't deceive her. He must have a really good relationship with that classmate of his. You're very welcome, Ms. Stewart. We're delighted to have someone like you to join South Lake Corporation. It was only a matter of time before Willow became the chairman of the company. There was no way Miranda dared to be uncourteous toward her. You exaggerate, Ms. Barton. I'll do my absolute best to excel at my job. Willow was a little embarrassed to be praised by the vice president of the company. Starting tomorrow, all external cooperative projects of South Lake Corporation will be under your management. However, the CEO has made it clear that the Stewart family is not on the list of potential collaborators. Any agreements to be established with the Stewart family must be approved by the CEO personally, Miranda instructed. Understood. Willow was a little puzzled. Why had the Stewart family been excluded from the list of potential collaborators? Has someone in the family offended the CEO? However, she didn't dwell on it for too long. After all, the most joyous thing for her today was becoming the project director of South Lake Corporation, which was the leading company in South Lake City. All right, you can come to the company tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. to complete your onboarding process, Miranda said. Thank you. I'll go back to prepare for now. See you tomorrow, Willow replied before turning around to leave. Standing outside of the company, Alicia and Henry looked at the distracted Willow disdainfully. You were kicked out, weren't you? I told you. They looked down on our family. You didn't believe me, Henry exclaimed. For a second there I really thought you were a fortune teller, Caspian. Looks like you failed this time as well, Alicia mocked. The two siblings left the place shortly after. Caspian was puzzled after seeing Willow's demeanor. Had Miranda not followed his instructions? How did it go, Willow? Did you fail? He asked. No, I succeeded, Willow replied excitedly. If that's the case, why do you look so downcast? Caspian was confused. I don't know. It's just a little hard to believe, she said. Since you've gotten the job, let's head home now, Caspian said. Okay, I can start working tomorrow, she said. I told you that you could do it. The Stewart family would have limited your development anyway, he stated. I didn't expect you to have such a good relationship with the CEO, Willow said. But why is he the CEO of a big company while you had to rely on winning the lottery to get by despite being classmates? She asked. Caspian fell silent for a moment and said, well, he had a wealthy father. Our backgrounds are incomparable. In any case, I still hope you'll strive harder, she said. I'll work hard to take care of our home after the wedding, he promised. Once the wedding preparations were over, it was time for him to return to his role as the ruler of Diatorin. At this point, I don't care about the wedding anymore. It's okay even if it's a simple wedding. After all, I've been embarrassed so many times that I don't care anymore, Willow replied with a sigh. This statement made Caspian feel uncomfortable. Willow sounded so beaten down. He already had his own plans for the wedding. Since Caspian had chosen Willow, he would definitely give her a grand wedding. He would make her the happiest woman in the world. Willow was in high spirits after she had successfully secured the job. She took Caspian to go shopping and bought some clothes. By the way, my best friend, Zoe, told me this morning that there's going to be a gathering tonight. Why don't you join me? Willow decided to bring him along because she was in a great mood. You want to bring me along? Caspian was a little surprised. That way, you can get to know the people around me. Besides, I would have been saved if someone took a liking to you. Right? Willow teased Caspian jokingly. These gatherings are probably all about showing off and talking big. He trailed off. Why? Are you going to refuse me? Willow's expression tensed. She looked like she was about to get angry. Of course not. My wife is famous for her beauty in South Lake City. I'll definitely follow you if you're attending, Caspian replied immediately. To be honest, I'm not particularly interested in this kind of gathering as well. However, Zoe insisted on inviting me. She explained, I understand. After all, you and Zoe are best friends. You should go if you want to attend, he said. Caspian had heard about Zoe Yanez from Willow. The two of them shared a close relationship. A piece of shocking news broke out at 5:00 p.m. that afternoon. A mysterious billionaire had paid a deposit of $15 million to book the largest and most luxurious hotel in South Lake City, the Jade Dragon Grand Hotel. Coincidentally, the date of the booking happened to be on the 30th. Is there something wrong with that person? They booked all the floors of the hotel. That's too. You're right. These rich people are too much, Caspian concurred. Caspian had guessed that this was Sylvia's arrangement after hearing the news. He did indeed plan to host an unprecedented wedding. But surely there was no need for Sylvia to book the entire hotel. How coincidental. We're also planning to have our wedding on the 30th, and now the Jade Dragon Grand Hotel is booked for the same day. I wonder what event they're hosting, Willow remarked. Maybe they're planning to host a wedding, Caspian suggested. The thought of someone holding a wedding on the same day as theirs made Willow feel uncomfortable. Displeased, she asked, who is it? Who do they have to hold their wedding on the same day as ours? Caspian didn't want to discuss this matter further for now. Everything would be revealed on the 30th. Revealing it now will only spoil the element of surprise. Willow took Caspian with her to attend the class gathering as the sky darkened.